Let me raise the issue that I raise every year, village-built clinics. We've had this conversation a lot for so many of the clinics built by IHS. And we've got 150 of them in Alaska. So many of them are really the only option for any level of care out there. Most have serious maintenance needs. In prior years, the agency took the view that tribes were responsible for paying these costs out of other funds that they got from the service. We have included $11 million in the 18 omnibus to help address this issue. So a couple questions this morning. First, how are you all planning to allocate the $11 million, and when will the funds be distributed? And then further to this is the concern that has been raised that some of these funds are now being used to pay for other leasing costs because of the legal case that came out of was the Maniilaq versus Burwell case that mandates payment of leasing costs when tribal facilities are used to operate IHS programs. So how much of this $11 million is being used to pay for these new legal obligations versus the traditional village-built clinic arrangement? If someone can please address that and give me an update.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. And I'll start and I'll ask Ms. Church to provide some additional specificity. Of the $11 million, we currently, through tribal consultation with the tribes in Alaska, have identified $6 million of that to go specifically to village-built clinics, and the remaining $5 million to be available for 105L leases. And the majority of those 105L leases have been, up to this point, within the state of Alaska. We are starting to receive 105L lease requests from the lower 48 and now have several tribes who have requested leases in Navajo, Phoenix, Portland, and Nashville areas. So I'll ask Ms. Church to provide a little more specificity in terms of when and the impacts of the 105L projections.
Thank you for that question. Consistent with the distribution in 2017, when we first received the $11 million, which we greatly appreciate the support of this subcommittee in receiving those funds. As Admiral Wiyaki mentioned, we are using $6 million for the village-built clinics, and we have the $5 million for this other additional lease requirement under the Indian or the ISDIA. So we do know that within Alaska in particular, we have seen a bit of a shift in how the village-built clinics are electing to move forward with these leases. And so far, we've seen about 33 of those village-built clinics shift from that standard formula under the village-built clinics and moving over to this other leasing opportunity. As Admiral Wiyaki mentioned, we are beginning to see additional interest from other areas throughout the United States, and we do see the financial impact of that increasing exponentially over time.
So let me ask the question, because this is, as I understand the budget proposal, it effectively overrides the 105L with this notwithstanding clause that would make these lease payments entirely discretionary within the agency, so effectively overturning the Maniilaq decision. And this is a pretty significant shift, I guess, because it would impact probably one of the most important statutes that govern Indian country. And I have not had a conversation with the chairman of the Indian Affairs Committee, but this is something that, from the authoriser's perspective, it does kind of beg the question as to whether or not this proposal has been shared with the chairman and the vice chairman, and then further to the point, what their view is of this. Have those discussions been had?
There have been some preliminary discussions with the staff of our authorizing committees to talk about this issue. The language I think that you're referring to was proposed in our 18 congressional justification as well as 19. And we would hope that this would be a starting point for discussions about an appropriate way to ensure that we can honor the commitment for this unfunded requirement and come up with a good solution moving forward.
Well, and let me ask what that good solution might be, because it's my understanding that that the budgetary impact of this decision nationwide is going to blow things out of the water. That you've indicated that in Alaska, we've got some 33 tribes. Admiral, you mentioned that several nationwide are looking to this. What's going to happen?
I believe projection-wise, it could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars mark if something's not done.
Well, okay, so if something is not done, what would you propose that we do? Because hundreds of millions of dollars, we're sitting here looking at the needs and recognizing that you've got a budget that at least the ranking member and I are looking at in certain categories are simply not adequate. And now we're talking about something that could shift the priorities dramatically. Help us out here.
Well, right now the agency's only discretion is with those direct service funds that for the federal operated facilities that we have oversight for. Some possibilities might include a separate funding line for this particular cost, or to make the contract support costs available for lease payments. Just a couple off the top of my head. Would turn to Ms. Church. Any ideas you might have as a financial expert within the agency?
Aside from additional funds, other discussions could be related to some sort of legislative discussion that would be open to conversations on how that might work. But as it currently stands, there would be a need for additional resources to cover this issue.
So what you're telling me now is that with the 18 funds, 11 million total, 6 million is going to go to the VBCs, 5 million then to these 105Ls, but that is just a drop in the bucket in terms of what we may be facing next year. And we clearly don't have enough to address it with these FY18 funds either, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I don't know if you told me when the funds would be distributed, the 11 million?
We're working on getting those funds out as we speak.
So how do you prioritize the 5 million then amongst the 33 Alaska tribes that have sought to use those funds, and then the several that are being considered from other tribes around the country?
As the lease proposals are coming in, they're being addressed in as timely a fashion as we can. It involves negotiations to make sure that we have full understanding of what's included in the proposal, and going through all of the different items that have been included for assessing those reasonable costs. So at the moment, we are proceeding as they come in that priority order. And so right now, we have been able to use the $11 million at this point exclusively for the Alaska proposals that are coming in. And we're still working on additional proposals from other locations.
Well, I would suggest that this is one of those issues that we need to engage with as many of you within the agency that are involved from a policy perspective. We need to be sitting with you from the appropriating perspective, because we've got an issue that is very readily moving out of control from a spending perspective. And so how we work together to address it is going to be something that we need a little coordination on this. I hope you would agree with that.
Would be happy to provide any technical assistance or coordination needed. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.